Councillors, officers and members of the public, welcome to the Wednesday 19th of July 2023 Development Assessment Committee. I'll now open the meeting with the President and apologies. We've received apologies from Councillor Edwards and Councillor Minari. I can confirm that all other councillors are in attendance this evening. In accordance with the Mirrabul Shire Council's governance rules, the Council will be recording and live streaming this meeting. Items 4 and 5 are the confirmations of minutes and matters arising from the previous minutes. Councillors, are there any matters arising from the previous meeting held on the 21st of June 2023? No. We'll now move to confirm the minutes. Do I have a councillor confirm the minutes of the previous meeting? Moved Councillor Berry. Seconded Councillor Dudzik. All in favour? I can confirm the minutes confirmed. Councillors, does anyone have a conflict of interest to declare? No. Okay, item 7. Item 7.1 is the development of 4 ancillary sheds to an existing dwelling at 95 Possum Tail Run, Merrimew. We have received a written submission from Caroline Thomas, which has been circulated to the committee. Councillors, do anyone have any questions of officers regarding the written submission? Councillor Sullivan.
Just a question, if I may. I know the written submission objecting seems to suggest that a use going on the site, but all we can do is deal with the development. That anything else would be a subsequent matter. Is that correct?
Mr. Bazoudenhout.
So, Mr. Mayor, it's a question about the proposed use of the sheds. I can refer, there's a condition in if the permit is to be issued, which specifically says that it must be used in accordance with the residential use and not to be used for any commercial purposes. So there's a clear condition specifying the use of the sheds.
Councillor Sullivan? No. Councillor Tatchell.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, look, my concern with is this Hopetoun Park thing is probably got a little bit off the rails in terms of what's allowed and what's not allowed. Some have got through up there, some haven't. We've broken covenants from time to time, and I think there was one broken at the last meeting with no fear or favour. And it's become very obvious there at Hopetoun Park that there's some issues when someone wants to build one shed, but then it acts more like a loophole. Now you can build 4 or 6 or 8 or 10, because it basically says you can build as many as you like. And my concern is that we're probably going to have to put something in place, or somebody is going to put a storage place up there and say, well, yeah, no worries, I'll build 12 of these and put them on my property. And I know I understand the complaints from both sides, but it seems that Hopetoun Park and the covenants that were put there originally probably aren't fit for purpose today, probably because of the inconsistencies that have occurred over a number of years through us, you know, through council, where I've allowed them. I think there's a number of councils here we've allowed sheds. Maybe we just need to revisit it, because I think this actually looks silly, and I know it's the rules and that's how it is, but it does look a bit strange. But that was just my view, but I won't get in the way of it.
Thank you, yeah. Councillor Tatchell. We'll take that on board as a comment. Councillor Dudzik.
This application is in Merrimew, it's not in Hopetoun Park.
Yeah, but I think across that whole area we've created a problem with a better precedent to us. And Hopetoun Park's a good example that Merrimew could be exactly that, unless we tie it up. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
That's why. So I was just using the
Yep. Councillors, Paul and Danielle Addard, who were the applicants, have also registered to speak at this meeting, but I note they're not in attendance tonight, so we'll proceed. They may be in attendance. Councillor Sullivan.
I think the issue that Councillor Tatchell was alluding to was, and basically relates to the Hopetoun Park area, not this one, as Councillor Dudzik points out, is the matter of covenants that exist across a number of these properties, of which are not of council's making. They are the developer that puts these covenants on. It may well be going forward that we need to dissuade them from trying to do that, but that's something that they do and not under our control. But it does give council some grief as it goes along when people try to do something that's controlled by that covenant. So I take Councillor Tatchell's point, but I'm not quite sure whether it's within our control. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Paul and Danielle Attard, welcome to the Development Assessment Committee meeting. You're just in time. You obviously registered to speak, so I invite you to take the table, and you'll have the opportunity to address the councillors regarding your application for 3 minutes, at which point councillors may choose to ask questions. So please make yourself comfortable, press the button to turn on the microphone after you've settled yourself, and you will have the floor.
It's on? Beautiful. Good evening, councillors, and thank you for having us. Danielle and Paul Attard from 95 Possumtail Run, Merrimew. Thank you for the opportunity to address you all. We bought the property up in Merrimew in December 2022. We knew the restrictive covenants abound the property and the estate, commonly known as Sunnystones. At no stage, I just want to reiterate, at no stage have we tried to get around the covenants. We've openly engaged with town planning and we've met all their requirements in regards to the restrictive covenants. And we've given great consideration in submitting the amended plans and strongly believe they meet all the points covered under the restrictive covenants and abound our property as well as everyone else at 95 Possumtail Run, Merrimew. Thank you. That's probably about it.
Thank you, Danielle and Paul. Councillors, do you have any questions for Danielle and Paul regarding their application? Councillor Sullivan.
Just one, if I may. Mr. Sazza, you say that there's a covenant. What does the covenant specifically say?
The entire property is bound by restrictive covenants.
Yeah.
The covenants say that you cannot build a shed larger than 7 by 13 metres.
Okay, thank you.
Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Tatchell?
I'll just follow up from Councillor Sullivan. Is there a height restriction as well?
Yes, there is.
Yeah. What's that?
4 metres.
Councillors, any further questions? No? Thank you, Danielle and Paul. Just resume your seat. Thank you very much. Councillors, you have a recommendation in the papers before you regarding the report. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation?
I'm happy to move it.
Move Councillor Dudzik. Do I have a councillor to second the motion? Councillor Tatchell. Councillors, are there any objections? Okay, all in favour? Motion carried. Councillors, the next item is item 7.2, which is development and use of a community care accommodation and associated caretakers dwelling and sign, 263 to 267 Hallett's Way, Darley. Councillors, we also have a written submission from Ms Emma Prespanovsky, which has been circulated to councillors. Councillors, do you have any questions of officers regarding the written submission? Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just have a question to officers. So in the documentation that we have that council officers have prepared, it talks about the facility not housing any drug-affected people. In the document that is supplied by the applicant, there is a sentence in there, the proposal is no way includes or is likened to that of a psychiatric facility. So that takes, that doesn't cover in the council's documentation. However, is it specific then that there'll be no drug affected people on that facility and also psychiatric?
Mr Bazudnout.
Okay, so through the chair. Mr. President. So through the chair, the facility is for people with physical disabilities. So it is a purpose-built facility with single rooms. So it's not designed as an institution whereby it could accommodate, for example, people with mental illnesses or people with drug addictions. And also the way that it's been laid out, it's got that interaction where it's got open space areas for residents to use. And again, there'll be different residents, not just one type of resident, so there'll be different residents occupying the building, along with a caretaker.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Sullivan?
Mr Mayor, I may have missed it, but there's 3 parcels of land, as I understand, involved in this application. Will there be a requirement that they be consolidated together before the development starts to ensure that there's no potential for individual sale going forward?
Mr Lovell?
So through the chair, while it's not within the papers, the applicant is consolidating all of 261 to 267 Hallett's Way, plus they're doing a minor boundary realignment with the childcare centre next door because their fence line is out with the title boundary.
Okay, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, any further questions? No? Again, councillors, you have a recommendation in the papers before you regarding the report. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation?
I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Sullivan, second Councillor Dudzik. Any objections? All in favour? I declare the motion carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 8 is an update on trends, issues and other matters. I'll now ask the Executive General Manager, Community Planning and Development, Mr Bazudnjak, to provide any updates to the committee.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There's no updates.
Thank you. Whilst I'm with you, Mr Bazudnjak, any updates on VCAT decisions?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll hand over to Mr Lavelle to provide an update on 3 VCAT items. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Lovell.
Okay, so through the chair, 40 Pikes Creek Road in Murniong, which was a refusal to grant a planning permit. VCAT have issued a decision which is to affirm council's decision, so they supported our recommendation not to support a 2-lot subdivision of the land, primarily due to risk that wastewater could pose to the Pikes Creek Reservoir, which was in proximity to that site. The second update is 176 Main Street, Bacchus Marsh. The second compulsory conference was held on Monday, and as a result of that conference, all the parties, so council, applicant and objectors who were present, have agreed with Zone A and B. So they're the 2 components of the development that officers were supportive of. So all the parties are in agreement to issue approval for that section, and the appeal, which will be coming up, that will be with Zone C, which is that front tenancy facing Main Street, which is affecting the Elms Medical Centre. So that will still be an application for a review, and of course council's recommendation was for refusal, particularly to that component. And the third update is 420 Main Street, 420 Bacchus Marsh Road in Bacchus Marsh. That's the Glass House proposal. We had our first compulsory conference on Tuesday, and this was an application where Melbourne Water objected to the application based on flood risk. As a result of that compulsory conference, the applicant's engineers and Melbourne Water's hydraulic engineers have had different results and different flood effects, and the tribunals asked them to go back to see if they can actually get some common ground. So they'll actually be organising a second compulsory conference to see if they can mediate this flood issue.
Thank you, Mr Lovell. Councillors, any questions on any of those matters? Councillor Tatchell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I suppose it's a broad question, but what's the future of Pikes Creek? I mean, it seemed like such a good idea, that area that they put in there, and then, but that's basically all they could do. It just seems like such a waste, you know, in terms of residential or, I mean, far be it for me to say elite, but I think, you know, it would be a fairly classy place to live, I would have thought. Has it got a future, or is that it?
So through the chair, so when the tribunal looked at this particular decision for 40 Pikes Creek, they actually looked at the wide area, so all that catchment area which is in the rural living zone, and they were quite concerned about the number of existing dwellings in proximity to Pikes Creek, and they used the rule, the 1 dwelling per 40 sort of hectare limitation, and their idea is to restrict development in proximity to the reservoir.
Just, if I may, just a follow-up question on my colleague's question. The only potable water that comes out of Pikes Creek is that which Western Water derives from Murnion, correct? Which is about 60 megs out of a capacity. That's right, about 60 megs out of a capacity which runs into the thousands. So I'm just a bit curious as to why the bulk of water out of Pikes Creek is used for irrigation purposes at Werribee and also Bacchus Marsh too. So I guess the broader question is, picking up what Councillor Tatchell says, what, from a strategic point of view, is it something we need to consider going forward? Because I think there's been development put in there and yet now what's seemingly going nowhere. So we just need to sort of perhaps draw a line in the sand and see what we're doing with this. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, what we would normally do is we would take the VCAT decision, we would unpack that decision and see if there's any implications or any specific recommendations that we need to take on board and apply to the broader context. So in this instance, we'll review that condition. I'm happy with one of the briefings to maybe provide a bit of more detail on the basis of the decision, and then also we will have a conversation with strategic planning as well as stat planning to see what's the implications of this decision.
And I suppose just to extend on that, that was a fact raised during the hearing that only 5% of the total water capacity of Pikes Creek is actually used for drinking water. The rest is for agricultural purposes.
Thank you, Mr Bazudniout and Mr Lovell. Councillor Berry.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Can I just ask a question on 176 Main Street VCAT position? So Zone A and B, did one of those include the car parking situation?
So through the chair, that is correct. So Zone B was the additional car spaces running towards Gell Street. So that car park area was okay, and also the double-storey office building facing Bennett Street, so right up the northern side of the shopping centre.
Yeah, thank you. Just a subsequent question.
Yes.
So the car parking spaces, there was 70-something that they couldn't have been taken away, and they are adequately being replaced now.
So through the chair, they've not been replaced, but the issue now comes to the large tenancy proposed for Main Street. So traffic and car parking are still going to be considerations for the tribunal to undertake with Zone C, which is the one now in dispute.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dudzik.
Do we know when the hearing will be in relation to the Elms Medical Centre side of it? And are we having a lawyer there or are planning officers acting there?
So through the chair, we are being represented by a legal representative, plus council's also engaging an urban design expert witness to assist our legal representative.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Lovell. Councillors, any further questions? Thank you. Item 10, other business. I'll go now around the room. Councillor Sullivan.
No other business, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Tatchell.
Yes, but I was asked a question about the mechanics hall. There's a new manager down there for the neighbourhood place and community house. And I was asked a question about a ramp in the front of the building. I know that you can get in through the back because it has wheelchair access, but you have to come over gravel to get through there. And I know that there's a heritage overlay on the front, but there's been a lot of questions asked about fitting a ramp, and I know it's not very wide, and it might actually create more problems than solve them, but I did say that I would ask the question, has it ever been considered, or is there something in the drawer somewhere that says it can be done? Because it's a DECA property anyway, so. But it seems like a logical question, I suppose.
Okay, can we take that one on notice and look into that? Thank you. Nothing else, Councillor Tatchell? Councillor Berry?
Nothing. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Dudzik?
No business, Mr Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And I have nothing to raise. So on that note, the date of the next Development Assessment Committee meeting will be Wednesday the 16th of August. And thank you, councillors, officers and members of the public who attended. I now declare the meeting closed.